everybody. Welcome to the Berry Center. Thank you to the Berry Center for hosting us here today. I am Isa Helfgott. I'm the Vice Provost for Global Engagement here at UW, and it really is an extreme and kind of a rare pleasure for me today to introduce Dr. Laurie Marker, Executive Director of the Cheetah Conservation Fund. And I'm going to give a somewhat lengthy introduction just to give you all a little sense of why it is we're so excited to have Dr. Marker here. This has been a much anticipated visit, and we're really looking forward to all of the ways that we here in Wyoming can contribute and work with the Cheetah Conservation Fund in the future. I'm especially excited because I had the great privilege to visit CCF in Namibia in 2019 with my family, and I can really tell you from personal experience that it is one of the most remarkable places in the world and really a center for multifaceted and innovative approaches to conservation and biodiversity. So Dr. Marker began her career working with cheetahs at Wildlife Safari, a wildlife park in the United States. During her 16 years there, she helped develop the U.S. and international captive breeding program for cheetahs and established the most successful captive cheetah breeding program in North America. She first traveled to Southwest Africa, what is now Namibia, in 1977 while conducting research into the rewilding of captive-born cheetahs. And it was during this time that she realized that farmers were catching cheetahs in cage traps and killing them. And later research showed that farmers had killed more than 7,000 cheetahs, cutting the country's cheetah population in half. So in 1990, Dr. Marker left her job at the Smithsonian's New Opportunities Animal Health Science Center and moved to Namibia and founded the Cheetah Conservation Fund. From its origins in a simple farmhouse with one old Land Rover purchased with funds she raised from the sale of her possessions, CCF has now developed into a world-class research, education, and conservation center set on a private wildlife preserve. CCF's open to the public facilities include a model farm, the Dancing Goat Creamery, which makes incredible ice cream, among other products, Cheetah Museum, the Life Technologies Conservation Genetics Laboratory, and the Haas Family Veterinary Clinic. They partner on research projects with universities and researchers from around the world, including some here at the University of Wyoming, and many more in the future, we hope. The organization is also making an impact on cheetah conservation outside Namibia, including in Somaliland, where they have another facility to stem the tide of poaching, and India, where CCF has supported efforts to reintroduce cheetahs, including participation, again, by the University of Wyoming through a doctoral student here. Dr. Marker has been globally recognized for the impact of her work with awards that are many too many to list in full, but I'll just give you a little sample. She's the recipient of the Explorers Club President's Award for Conservation, the Ulysses S. Seal Award for Innovation in Conservation, the E.O. Wilson Biodiversity Technology Pioneer Award, San Diego Zoo's Lifetime Achievement Award, the Society of Women Geographers Gold Medal, the Chevron Texaco Conservationist of the Year, and the Hero for the Planet from Time Magazine. And if you want to know more about all of the other awards and distinctions that she has garnered in her career, I invite you to visit the CCF website. She has a DPhil from the Department of Zoology at Oxford University and a BS from Eastern Oregon State University. Her research areas include conservation biology, genetics, wildlife management, agriculture, biodiversity and its human dimensions, and community-based natural resource management. What we will hear today, I suspect, will include a call for action. The CCF website quotes Dr. Marker as saying, "We always think there is someone else who will do something, that they will take care of it. I realized early in my work that there is no they, and so I decided that I would take action to save the cheetah from extinction." In that spirit, I want to make sure everyone here knows that thanks to the generosity of our local Laramie resident, Christy Bidstrup, who's here today and has really put in a ton of work to help make this event today happen, UW has the opportunity to send students to Namibia to contribute to CCF as interns and researchers. It's an amazing chance for our students to develop their own ability to be the doers the world needs. I'll just let you know that the Bidstrup Cheetah Conservation application is now live, and if you're a student, you can apply. The application is due November 15th, And I am going to collect email addresses at the back of the room after this talk for anyone who would like to have the link to the application so that we will make it very easy for you. So now please everybody join me in welcoming Dr. Laurie Marker from the Cheetah Conservation Fund. Thank you.
Thank you. Well, nice to be here. I tried to be here last year and it didn't work, so it's great. And we've had a couple more great interns with us as well. And I'm going to talk with you about trying to keep cheetahs free and in the wild and how we go about doing that. I would like to, though, introduce our team who are here from the Cheetah Conservation Fund. And we've had a great day today viewing and meeting many of the people here at Wyoming. So Christy, why don't you put your hand up if you hadn't, okay? And Christy's on our board of trustees for the Cheetah Conservation Fund and has worked with us over in Namibia about 15 years ago and stayed very actively involved in the work that we do. Tess, who's also down here in a picture with me with the dogs, is in the back, and she's my assistant over in Namibia and works together with everything that we do, and actually started as an intern at the Cheetah Conservation Fund about 12 years ago or so. Many of the people never leave, which we like even more. And then Dion, where are you? Dion's right there, and Dion is actually from Colorado and is one of our staff for the Cheetah Conservation Fund here in the United States and brings us all together. So that's why we're all here. So thank you for having us, and it is nice to be in the room here. I see some of my animals on the wall along with some of yours. So this is the African room I see. So, and just to let you know more about cheetahs. They are beautiful. They're the fastest of all the land animals. They're the most endangered of all the big cats of Africa. Every part about the cheetah is built for speed. Aerodynamic head, long legs. When they run, only 1 foot touches the ground, 2 points of the stride. No feet are touching the ground. They have unique, semi-non-retractable dog-like claws, which help them run fast. They have a very flexible backbone and shoulder and hip girdles that allow them to have great extension. And one way that you can tell a cheetah from any of the other spotted cats, which most people can't, is that they have black tear marks which run down from their eyes. But being the fastest land animal, there's only about 7,000 cheetahs left in the world today. So they are running their most important race, and that is to race against extinction. Now, boy, if we lost the cheetah, the fastest land animal, what's the next fastest land animal? Any thoughts about that? I see a young person back there. What is the second fastest land? A gazelle, but there might be a more special gazelle. Somebody up front here?
The pronghorn.
The pronghorn antelope. And that lives in your backyard. So you know, you guys, you used to actually have cheetahs in your backyard here too. A few years ago, or a few thousand. But you know, time flies when you're having fun. But you still have pronghorns, and gee, maybe you might want to have cheetahs again sometime. But losing the cheetah, the fastest land animal, you know, it's got kind of a ring to it. Fast like a pronghorn just doesn't have that same ring. So we don't want to lose the cheetah, even though we love pronghorns, but maybe you guys are very involved in the life of the cheetah. There are the cutest cubs. Cheetahs are the most beautiful animal. I'm not at all partial. They are the most unique of all the big cats. There's about 42 species of cats, but the cheetah is unique. It's got a purr. Most of the other big cats, none of them do purr. These cubs are at about 10 days of age. Their eyes are just opening. A female can have maybe 4 to 5 cubs, which is average. They can have up to 6, a few litters of 8. But 4 to 5 is most average. There is usually a very high infant mortality in the wild. We oftentimes can see upwards to 90% infant mortality in many of the protected game reserves. Most cheetahs are found outside of protected game reserves because of the competition with the other animals. The mother raises her cubs until they're about 18 to 22 months of age. At that point in time, The males stick together with the female sisters and they go off and they start hunting on their own. And then a few months later, dominant males will come in and push the young males away, and the young males will then disperse a couple hundred miles away, and the female cubs stay within her mother's home range. And so it's a matriarchal society, and females have much larger home ranges than males do, which is different than most all other predators. Cheetahs are found in some of our most arid landscapes in all of the world. And Africa is full of dry landscapes and a lot of amazing and beautiful wildlife. But with that, as we look at these arid landscapes, we are seeing climate change. And from these climate changes, our arid lands are becoming more arid, and we will continue to see that. They're also where some of the poorest people are. So you put poverty along with climate change, along with grasslands going away. There's a lot of things that we have to deal with when we save the cheetah. And so all the components that I say from Cheetah Conservation Fund are really intertwined with the humans and the landscapes that the cheetahs are living in. Sadly, today we're in what we call the sixth global extinction, and I'm sure you all are aware of that. And what do we do about it? But it is pretty scary. The World Wildlife Fund about a week ago came out with a report that said that since 1970, when I started working with wildlife, we've lost 70% of the world's wildlife. That is dramatic. I've been in this for such a long period of time that you can then start seeing these kinds of trends. They're scary. But we're also predicting that if things continue the way they're going, we could lose up to 40% of the remaining wildlife that's on land by 2050. So we hope that that can reverse, and that is the goal that we're pushing for. But large carnivores are actually at the top and leading the way in much of the extinction that's going on, even though our large carnivores are really important for the biodiversity of our ecosystems. Where the cheetah fits into this is we've lost about 20 of the countries where the populations are, in the last 100 years. And this map over here in the light yellow, is where the cheetahs were found 100 years ago. The dark yellow is where we find them today, less than 7,500 individuals. And they are, as I mentioned, mostly found outside of protected areas. They're found in 23 countries, 33 populations, and 20 of those are under 100 individuals. So there's a lot of issues. The cheetah also is a species that lacks genetic diversity that we learned many years ago. I live in this area called Namibia, and Namibia is in the southern part of Africa. We also have a facility up in Somaliland that we set up over the last 5 years. And most of the cheetahs, 50% of them, are in Namibia and Botswana. In Namibia, 95% of our cheetahs are found outside of protected areas. So working with people is really what my story is going to be all about. In Namibia, we call livestock farmers, you would call them ranchers, we call them livestock farmers. So I'm going to continually talk about farmers. They don't grow anything except livestock because we don't have a lot of water there. And so livestock farmers are who we're dealing with. The conservation threats revolve around habitat loss, and again, that arid landscapes that we're dealing with, much of them are full of livestock, many of them very poor livestock and not very healthy. Human-wildlife conflict is one of the biggest issues that the cheetah is faced with. That cheetahs are a predator, they can catch livestock. All predators can catch livestock. Much of what I found in Namibia is it was more perceived than it was actual. But even with that, if a cheetah does catch livestock, they're usually caught and trapped. Back around 40 years ago, farmers started learning that cheetahs were around 50 years ago, and they were told, catch a cheetah. The only good cheetah is dead cheetah, and so farmers would catch cheetahs and then usually kill them. So the other problem that cheetahs face is that of the illegal wildlife pet trade, and that's primarily up in the middle, in the Horn of Africa, and I'll talk about all of these different problems and the programs that we've tried to put into place to try to assist. Cheetahs also lack genetic diversity, and our early studies in the 80s showed that the cheetah was genetically all the same, very similar. Our years of research have continued on that, but one of the things that alerted us to this was the reproductive abnormalities. So the cheetahs have between 70 and 80% abnormal sperm, and with that, that is something that is related to the genetic problem that goes back to about 15,000 years ago at the Pleistocene extinction, where we lost many of our species here, even in North America. And the cheetah was actually living in North America about 15,000 years ago. As was mentioned, I started at a wildlife park in Oregon, and this cheetah that's running across the picture here, her name was Kayam, and I raised her from a tiny cub, and my job was to find out if a captive cheetah could learn how to hunt. I took her to Namibia, I learned how to hunt, so did she, and I also found that farmers were killing cheetahs like flies. I have other pictures over here which make me more happy, as I grew up on the back of a horse. And I have dogs and goats, and I love wildlife. I'm a goat judge here in the United States, or I was before I went to Namibia. And so I've been with wildlife and livestock my entire life. I like animals. From a captive perspective, how many cheetahs are there in the world? As I mentioned, there's about less than 7,500 in the wild, but there's only about 2,000 that are living in captivity around the world. So it's not like it's an animal that there's a lot in captivity, and it's also an animal that does not breed well in captivity. So throughout the world, America is managing about 30% of the captive animals, and we every year there's only maybe, well, last year there was about 114 cubs born. Look at the deaths. There were more deaths than there were births. And so if you're a population manager, you kind of look at what that looks like. And you got to grow populations. You need more births than you do deaths. So that's what the captive group does. And I manage what's called the International Stud Book, or the registry, and this tells us every year what's going on with the populations. But I just wanted to put that into perspective, that we do closely with our captive facilities around the world. Setting up the Cheetah Conservation Fund, though, our work is to keep cheetahs living free in the wild. The work that we do from the wild in Africa, we can then share that information back with our colleagues in captivity to try to help them manage their animals even better. But keeping cheetahs living free in the wild is all about trying to work with the farmers and the governments to find a way to do that. Now, Cheetah Conservation Fund, to give you a bit of a history, again with maps, we are circled here, and all the blue areas are we're a private farm, a reserve. We've put together about 8 different farms together, and we're about 158,000 acres. We border on the green area, which is a national park, which is called the Waterberg Plateau National Park, and it's where our government's rare and endangered species are. We're about 45 minutes down a dirt road from Otjiwarongo, and Otjiwarongo's town, that name means the beautiful place, or the place where your fat cattle grow. So it depends on, what you think is beautiful, and most of us think our cattle are beautiful. So our town now has a lovely sign as you drive in with cattle, goats, kudu, which we are very famous for, our kudu, and believe it or not, they put the cheetah up on their sign. So that gives you an idea of what happens after 30 years, that people do start appreciating some of what you're doing when you're working even with the predator. So Namibia and Otjiwarongo is called the cheetah capital of the world. We have a great research center, and we are off of the grid. Some of you have been there, and I know you were one of our Earth Expedition students, which is great, getting your master's degree there. But being off the grid, we built a little city in the middle of nowhere. And boy, I didn't know you could really do that, but you have nothing, and so you have to start somewhere. We are solar, all solar panel on our roofs. We also have had to make all of our own boreholes and pump our water, and we're in a very dry land area, and so every drop of water you really have to take care of. But that's what our center looks like today, where we've got our veterinary clinic, we've got a genetics laboratory, all of our model farm is there, ecotourism, and we do have welcome people from around the world to work with us. We've developed strategic programs which are important to save the cheetah. So again, all of the work that we do is to save the cheetah, but sometimes it's a little far-fetched because why are we doing habitat restoration or land management for the cheetah? Because the cheetah needs a place to live. We do One Health, capacity building, public awareness, human-wildlife conflict mitigation. All of these programs are tied into our work in saving the cheetah. I'll start by first telling you a little bit about our ecology research and monitoring. And some of the team here, Katan, put your hand up. You're a PhD student here. You came in your first year of your PhD to Namibia. His work has not only been in looking at a lot of our wildlife monitoring, also the quarry busters, but also has been working over in India, where he is from, on the reintroduction of the cheetahs that we worked closely together on a couple years ago. But our ecology team studies all aspects of the land where we're working. So not only are the cheetahs that are collared, but the leopards that might be collared. We're looking at the soils, the climate, the vegetation, and all the wildlife. And our teams are then developing our research questions and then trying to understand much more about this as it looks at our reintroduction programs and how we're going to monitor our wildlife and our predator populations for the future. So over a 30-year period of time, we've actually developed some really great coexistence programs that we then put into effect. But everything that we do is science-based, and so anything that we are putting into, we're studying or we're studying, we then actually make sure that we're doing the right thing. And if not, we can change directions very quickly or readapt. And so it's really important for that, but what we want to try to find is a way that people can be in harmony with nature. Namibia is very famous for what we call our conservancies. So conservancies are where communities manage their grasslands, their wildlife, and their livestock together. So instead of just having wildlife in a protected area, 80% of our wildlife is found outside a protected area on farmlands, ranch lands. The green area on this map are our national parks. And we have about 19% of the country are national parks. The country is about 2.5 times the size of California. The brown areas are conservancies, communal conservancies, which are very similar to what the Indian reservations were like here, where our communities prior to independence were put into their own little regional areas, and most of these regions were very, very poor lands and not much grazing. And those lands at independence, which was 1990, we were able to, the government actually put wildlife in those brown areas and then started working together with the communities to manage their wildlife and then reduce the impact of the land with some of the livestock. We work over here in the east in this conservancy area, and it is called the Eastern Communal Areas. And that's where we've been working and linking it together with our lands and the Greater Waterberg landscape, or Waterberg Conservancy. We are a big landscape, and we're dealing with several million acres of land and several 100,000 people to try to manage this area, not only for cheetahs, but also for African wild dogs and leopards that are out in these areas. So the integrated system, I think, is the important part of what I'm trying to bring out. And we'll talk more about this in the future, is that what Namibia has said is that it's not that our wildlife is all in a protected area. Wildlife goes outside of protected areas, and with that, we need to learn to live in harmony with our wildlife. This is our backyard, and we have migratory herds of oryx, hartebeest. We have eland, which is the largest of the African antelope. I'm glad he's there to be able to show. The name of our farm is called Elandsvrikte, which means eland's joy. And it's been known for thousands, hundreds of years, I guess, that the eland always come onto our land and give birth. Not only do the eland give birth on this land, so do the hartebeest and the oryx. So it's been pretty amazing for us to watch these migrations and movements. And I think I'm going to come back to Katja, and one of the papers that we worked on together was to actually look at the trends of the wildlife, because we monitor all of the wildlife trends by doing game counts. And we're studying all of the different species on our land, and we are very rich with wildlife species on this property. We're studying all the different predators, and everything that we're trying to do is to see how it all interfaces and overlaps with how the cheetah is living with them. So that's our backyard. We also have a sanctuary. So over the years when I got there and going door to door and talking to farmers, I wanted to know why they were killing cheetahs. And was it because the cheetahs were killing that much livestock? And boy, their farming methods maybe should be a little bit better, because they were killing 800 to 900 cheetahs a year. So my questions going around actually found out that it was more perceived. And so they were just told, if you see a cheetah, kill it. Well, they didn't know that the cheetah was one of Africa's most endangered big cats. With that, then they ended up with their own behavioral problems. If you end up killing a cheetah and it's a territorial male, more animals will come in, and so all of a sudden you've got more problems. Or if you kill a mom and you've got cubs, those cubs become behavioral problems. They can't catch the wildlife, and so they go and they start catching livestock. So as we started ferreting all this stuff out with the farmers, we found a lot more out, and the farmers now have fortunately stopped killing as many cheetahs as they once did. But even with that, we have a sanctuary, and we have now at CCF 28 cheetahs, which is one of the lowest numbers that we've had in a lot of years. Back in the early days, we had up to 50 to 60 cheetah cubs at our center. Now, many of these animals we try to put back out into the wild. And again, that's our message, is to try to keep these animals so that we could put them out, but you have to figure out how to go about doing this. Our work is based on understanding more about the basic biology and genetics of the cheetah. When we first started in Namibia, nobody knew what a healthy free-ranging cheetah looked like. Our animals in captivity had come in since the 70s. The people back around that period of time, when I'd write to them, I'd say, I want to know everything about cheetahs. They'd write back and they'd say, well, tell us. We don't know much about cheetahs. They don't breed well in captivity. They have a short lifespan, and they get all kinds of diseases, so good luck. So that's what I started my career trying to figure out. Over that period of time, as I came into Namibia, we had an opportunity to have our hands on a lot of animals. Now we've worked on over 1,500 individuals, and I've been able to get blood, tissues. If it's a dead animal, we'll collect samples as well. Every wild male cheetah that we have our hands on, we bank them, the sperm, at best practice. And that's the work that we've also done in collaboration with the Smithsonian team. We've also, over the years, then sequenced the cheetah's genome. And what we found out by sequencing the genome was that the reproductive problems were actually tied into the genetic makeup of the species. We're now looking much at this sequencing too, and looking at how that affects some of the diseases. Cheetahs get all the canine and feline diseases, all the feline diseases, and those of the canine diseases. And so therefore, when our One Health program, which is really important, we actually are looking at overlapping vaccination programs where the cheetahs are living with the domestic animals, because they are very susceptible to canine distemper, as well as that of all the feline viruses. One of the most important ones is that of feline infectious peritonitis, also known as Calicivirus virus. So that's been one of the main studies that we've looked at over time. We've been fortunate because a lot of the farmers have quit catching so many cheetahs, and that's been because of the farmer training programs we've been involved in, working together with the farmers. And so with that, we still want to collect more data, and having blood and tissues is great, but we now use a scat detection dog. This is cheetah scat, and out in the middle of nowhere, it's like finding a needle in the haystack. And so we use a dog that's trained to go find cheetah scat, and our ecologists and our dogs cover all areas of now Namibia, as well as now into Angola, where we've been studying the predators up in that area for the last about 4 years. The scat then comes down into our genetics lab. We are able to extract the DNA, and we're not only looking at the genetic individual populations, we're also looking at many of the diseases. We can also look at the scat and find out what the cheetahs have eaten, and that helps us talk to the farmers about what they think the cheetahs are doing on their land. So it's a very integrated program that we're involved in, and that is a very important part of our work. To talk a bit about the rehabilitation work that we've done. So I mentioned most of the animals that we've had our hands on have not been caught because they were catching livestock. They were caught because the farmers said that you should catch all the cheetahs. Fortunately, that stopped. But with that, we've been able to put over nearly 700 cheetahs back out into the wild. When they get caught, the farmers call us. We can go and do field procedures or bring them back into our lab at our center. I would prefer that because we have all the tools and techniques there, but we are very field trained. We then put collars on most of the cats, and the collars that we use today are all GPS collars, and so the data comes directly down into our computers and we can analyze their movements. In the years past when we started, we did the baseline work on how do cheetahs move. And the farmers used to think that they just were going on their farm and maybe their next door neighbor's farm. Cheetahs have the largest home ranges of any terrestrial mammal, even that more so than elephants, that we know that is very large, but cheetahs are covering about 800 square miles. So I'm going to try to put kilometers into miles for you guys and hectares into acres. They're covering about 20 farms, each of those being about 10,000 acres. And each one of these white squares over here is about 10,000 acres. Each one of these colored polygons is a home range of a cheetah. They do overlap, but their overlap is very low. They've got very large ranges and very low density in these areas. The density areas that we've been able to figure out have come from our camera trapping, and we've done a lot of camera trapping, and that continues to be much of the work that we're doing. And we know that we've got between 2 and 12 cheetahs and that's about 500 kilometers square. So they live over very large areas, very few of them. And then they have to find each other. And the way they find each other is by going to these marking trees, and they leave their scat, their urine. It's a marking tree. The farmers used to call them newspaper trees. But they do share a lot of information there. Dominant males have their smaller territories or home ranges, and female cheetahs will cover multiple males' ranges. Females have mate choice, and they will select the male that they want to breed with. This map up here, which is not as easy maybe to see, but there's a green dot and a yellow dot, and there's some red lines in there. And this was a cheetah that got caught and released about 2 months ago. This is 1 month of her movement patterns. And we share this with the farming community. Our cheetahs have GPS collars, and we've now geo-referenced the farmers' farms. And when the cheetah with a collar goes onto the farm, it alerts the farmer that the cheetahs are on their land and allows them to know more about the movement of the cheetah. But you can see over a month's period of time, this cheetah's movement was huge. And then the farmers, what we do when we release the cheetah, we ask that farmer to actually name the cat, and then maybe have a named animal, and then they're tracking them. This one is a cat named Ryan, I think, and Ryan's a female. But she's going to give birth, I think, in the next month or so. We were able to actually, we don't know, but by tracking, we were able to see that she sort of hung out in a few areas. And when they do give birth, then they actually stay in a certain area, a denning area, and we can start tracking them from there and understanding more about the birth and the cubs. So that georeferencing has become one of the most important things that we've been working with, early warning systems to try to stop the farmers from killing the cheetahs. My message today is, please don't kill cheetahs. I mean, I'm about ready to cry when I talk to the farmers because I've seen so much death, and they're beautiful. And so that's what we're trying to do. So 2 years ago, we did take cheetahs to India. And this program started about 20 some years ago, and we were intricately involved in all aspects of it. About 12 years ago, the IUCN and the Forestry Department of India brought together all the IUCN specialist groups to look at how to put cheetahs back out in India. They became extinct in India in 1950, so it's been 70 years. It's the only large mammal that's gone extinct in India. I think it's the only mammal that's gone extinct in India. And to the Indian population, they said that was not appropriate and they wanted to bring the cheetah back. So this is a long, long, long project. Putting an animal back is a lot harder than it is keeping it in the wild to begin with. And bringing it back, there are things like losses that occur. There's politics that you have to deal with. There are a number of different aspects. We wrote books on the health of the animals, the diseases we might be looking at, what the habitat looked like. The habitat that we chose was to bring the first group in was in Madhya Pradesh, which is kind of the middle of the country, and the Kuno National Park. It has a good prey base and open enough landscape. There were a lot of leopards that concerned us, but that has not been a problem. So we spent 2 years training and working very closely together with the Indian government. They had a lot of their staff over. We put them through training. Then when we went to put the cheetahs in India, and why Namibia and why India, that Namibia and India have a very close relationship. India supported Namibia at its independence, and Namibia felt they owed India. India thought that Namibia owed them. So it was an owing relationship. And so Indian government came to the Namibian government and said, we want to put cheetahs back. You're the cheetah capital of the world. Please help us. And so then the Namibian government came to the Cheetah Conservation Fund and said, Laurie, what are we doing? And what cheetahs are you going to recommend? Whew, that's a lot of pressure. It's a huge amount of responsibility for the cheetahs, my staff, the Indian government, and the world. We chose 8 of the best cheetahs that we could, and we worked them up. They've all been collected. We collared them all, and then we got to fly them in this wonderful airplane with a tiger, which almost, it's symbolic, I'm going to say, and that symbolism is important. And as conservationists, we have to look at these symbols and feel good about them. And as we flew them over, we landed there, and the cats did well. My staff was there in India for almost a year. And I have to say, we discussed it. You were there too, I know, but you're from India. It's a harsh place. We were in a very, very, very remote area. And my team was teaching the people how to go about tracking the animals. We had been tracking them. The cats knew us. We were trying to share that relationship together. And I guess you were just on the ground with them there too. So those 8 cheetahs did well, and a few months later, we brought in 12 cheetahs from South Africa. And from that, then, we had 20. We had some losses, we had some births. We had 5 litters of cubs, and with that, we are quite ahead of the game at this point in time. The government is now looking for 2 other reserves where we can bring cheetahs into, and nobody's going to see really any success out of this for probably 15 to 20 years. So it's a long-term program, but all I can say is that the Indian media is more verbose than I have ever seen anything anywhere at any time. And to this day, there are probably 20 papers a day I still get media on. They're still regurgitating what we did 2 years ago. It's like, is there not anything new? I'm sorry. You're laughing with me, I know that. But the media is interesting. But we are using this, though, because we will be putting cheetahs back into other countries in the world. And this was a very, very, very important reintroduction project. Anything we do, anywhere we go, we have to address humans. And this human-wildlife interface is really important. The program we developed is called Future Farmers of Africa. I grew up as a future farmer of America, so I thought it was great, that we just adapted the programs and put it to the needs for what the farmers in Africa needed. And so we teach them a lot about proper care of their livestock, vaccinations, deworming, how to trim their hooves, how to close their gate, how to not have a hole in your fence. Talking about understanding more about how you can play a role in protection of your animals, and that you have to have enough grass. So we teach a lot about grassland management as well as wildlife, because if there's wildlife, then a predator like the cheetah and all the other predators are going to be eating the wildlife. And everybody everywhere hates things like jackals and coyotes. And I always tell our farmers, well, if a cheetah's made a kill and the jackals come and eat off of it, because cheetahs share their prey with everybody else. So when you have a top predator like a cheetah, you've got great biodiversity because they're feeding everybody. The cheetah eats rapidly, and then everything else eats off of what the cheetah's killed. And so if the jackals kill eating off of the cheetah food, then it's not in your goat yard eating your goats. So it's very simple. One of the programs that we put into effect about 30 years ago, we're celebrating our 30-year anniversary, was our livestock guardian dog program. This dog that we use is an Anatolian Shepherd, or also known as a Kangal dog. It's a dog that comes from Turkey, and they are very big, and they grow up with their flock from the time they're puppies, and anything they grow up with, they will protect. And so we actually breed the dogs. They're at CCF. We have about 20 breeding dogs. We will have about 50 puppies born this year. We put out over 800 dogs in the past 30 years, and we see between an 80 to 100% reduction of livestock loss, not just to cheetahs, but to all the other predators. So in the name of the cheetah, we're out helping the whole system work. They're cute. You don't want them to hang out with you. They hang out with the goats. We spay, neuter them, vaccinate them, and then work with the communities, the dog's entire life, to make sure that the dog's doing what it's supposed to do and what the farmer's supposed to do, what it's supposed to do. And farmers are harder to train than the dogs are. These dogs have been working for about 5,000 years from Turkey, and the reduction of the human-wildlife conflict has been amazing. Namibia's work and the work with the farmers and these dogs, I think, has resonated throughout the world. And we've seen the dogs working more here now in the United States. We see more of the dogs working now in Europe, which it is a European breed. But also we're now seeing them being in places like South America. And we are trying to help people monitor how well the dogs are doing. Because we have dogs and we have livestock, we've tried to look at different alternative livelihoods. And one of those has been making cheeses. We have a goat dairy, and we, mostly in Africa, you take your goats with you and you eat them. And I love my goats. And as I said, I used to be a goat judge and have always had milking goats. And so I thought, well, why don't we have milking goats here in Africa? And most people don't, because I don't think they knew enough about it. Or where did you get the goats from? They're a European goat. I got my goats from Southern Africa, from South Africa, brought them up, and have developed not only our products, but we also have a logo that we developed called the Product of Cheetah Country. And then we are also certified wildlife friendly. And I'm talking about certification because certification, I think, through economics can actually help guide consumers to do some of the right thing. Some of what you guys may have heard about is like organic. Well, organic doesn't help cheetahs because you can have organic meat and put poison out and kill all the predators. We also help work with the women on craft development. Some of the crafts are out here that are welcome for you to, I hope, buy, take home. And I love our crafts because I know the ladies who've made them. And many of these beads are handmade with magazines. They're some of the most rural people that I know. And women, if you can educate women or help women get economy, women will do a huge amount. They will then put their kids through school. They will feed their kids. They're the ones taking care of the water resources, the livestock. And so women, to me, are very, very important. And as a women-led organization, many of the women in Africa kind of have looked up to me as saying, where do we go and what do we do? And I just say, we want to help you make money and live in harmony with nature. So livelihood development becomes some of the key things. And we're always trying to look at alternative ways to make monies as well. So livestock is something that everybody has, and cheetahs are living in very arid landscapes. And when you overgraze an arid landscape, you have two things that occur. One of those can be sand and gravel plains. The other thing that can occur is bush can take over, or different vegetation. In Namibia and southern Africa, we have thickened thorn bush, which has taken over. And this is an increased problem, especially over the last 60 to 80 years through our drought cycles and the increase of humans and livestock. When you increase the humans and livestock, we've reduced the elephants and the rhinos and the giraffes that are not out on the land, but the goats and the sheep and the cattle still are. And that has formed bush encroachment, which is what this is called. And these bushes have very deep roots, and that leads to desertification. And we're already in an arid land, and when you have desertification, you have no grass that grows underneath these bushes, and nothing is really eating those bushes. Bringing you into Namibia, which again is a country that's 2.5 times the size of California, this area up here, which is about the size of California, is the area where the cheetahs live, primarily. That is so thickly thorned bushed that the farmers have increased the amount of land to take care of their livestock by buying a second farm the same size. The farmers have said, well, we can't kill the bush, so we're going to kill every predator that's around because we don't want anything to take away from our livelihood. And that's how I got involved with biomass. It doesn't seem like a real thing that a cheetah biologist would do, but I saw the problems and I saw ideas and solutions. So the thorn bushes, and what we started finding was cheetahs that were blinded in the eye, and they were catching livestock. About 2 to 3% of all the cheetahs that we worked on only had caught livestock. The rest were fine. And those that had caught livestock had a medical problem, blinded in the eye, potentially a broken leg, broken teeth, or behavior without a mother. And so we thought that there was something we could do about the biomass. I was in Oregon for a number of years and saw chip trucks go through, and I thought that maybe this bush had some economic value. Our studies ecologically showed that most of the land is over 50% thorn bush. Cheetahs like to live in an area that's less than like 25% thorn bush. They need open areas to run and hunt. And so we want to reverse this trend, and the way you have to go about doing this was to figure out how do you harvest that bush. Well, we put together a bush program. We had to figure out how to harvest it. We used people to help harvest, also some machines. We harvest at a Forest Stewardship Council certified appropriate way. FSC is the highest level of forest protection. So we're very careful in everything that we do with this. We look at biodiversity. So we're constantly studying the biodiversity of the lands of that which was harvested and not harvested. Ben, where are you? You were helping on some of that project when you were there as one of our interns. But we harvest the bush, we make chips out of it, we put it through an extrusion process, similar to a Duraflame log that would be sold here, but Duraflame has additives. This is a eco log that burns with high heat and low emissions. And from that, we've had a lot of awards for this. We put lots and lots of people to work, and we're clearing habitat. And with that, we're trying to scale this up through our Biomass Technology Center, that we're now looking at bush feed, so feed that can go to our cattle or goats. We are also looking at biomass electricity. We are off the grid, and so all of these are very appropriate for us to look at. So the habitat restoration, again, is looking at the benefits, cheetahs, in rural communities. So everything, again, we do, we like to be circular in our approach. And Mati, who's the man down here in the middle, between myself and our general manager, Bruce Brewer, and the biomass program has been sort of our baby. Mati just finished his PhD about 3 months ago on biomass. So he's actually the nation's forest steward. It's kind of exciting. Another problem, which doesn't have as easy of solutions, but that's the illegal wildlife pet trade. And these cubs are stolen from the Horn of Africa, and they go, there's about 200 miles, or not even that. It takes 2 hours to get from the Horn of Africa over into Yemen and the Arabian Peninsula. And the cubs are stolen from the bush. They buy them maybe for $100 or $200 at the most. And then they're sold illegally for about $15,000. And we got involved in this around 2005. By 2011, we were realizing it had moved on up into Somaliland. And by 2017, we had boots on the ground in Somaliland. Somaliland is a not recognized country. It is a breakaway of Somalia. And from there, we are working with trying to stop the trade. They're going through this area, between 200 to 300 a year we're going through. For every one that made it into the pet trade, 4 to 5 of them were dying. We were then helping the government confiscate them. They were caught in plastic buckets, containers. They were dumped out, mostly dead. It has been a horrific experience. Our approach to the trade really is to try to look at stopping the supply and stopping the demand. But with this, we still have these individuals. Today in Somaliland, we have 97 cheetahs. We've had nearly 200 that have come through us. Those that didn't make it came to us pretty much dead. We have international veterinarians with us. I have a staff of over 30 people working on trying to take care of these animals. Through our surveys, we've been able to see where cheetahs are found, and we're trying to now look at how to make these areas better for the wildlife that's there, and the red is where they've been confiscated. So we've done surveys, education, awareness, livelihood development. The government then, a couple years ago, gave us this big piece of land, and we were living in 5 facilities. We called them safe houses, and we could not build fast enough. I had to bring all the wire up from South Africa because they don't have wire. We were containerizing it. It was a mess for a 5-year period of time. When the government finally gave us the land, 2 years ago we started building. We moved into our center 1 year ago, so we're 1 year into this nice, beautiful area. Our cheetahs are living in anywhere from 5 to 20 acre landscapes in the bush. Again, I think they're in different groupings of areas like this shows over here. We're in the process, we hope soon, of getting base 2 dealt with. Base 2 will be an area that we can then put into a rehabilitation area, but we have to fence that blue area. The green area, the government said, make it a national park. Well, great, we thought that was going to be easy, simple. It's not that simple. And I'll tell you why. But education became really important, and what we wanted to let people know is that it's against the law. They didn't know it was against the law. All of the graphics and the posters we've made are all in English here, but they're all in Somali. Everything that we've done, we've had to put into Somali. But we've gone around and done surveys with the people, letting them know it is a crime, and now we even have a hotline that people can call to let us know if there's anything going on. Our surveys were conducted through most of the country of Somaliland. The areas that we couldn't go to are areas that are not stable. The area that we are working in is probably mostly in this Adal region that I pulled over here. And all these red dots are areas where the communities know that there are cheetahs. Nobody in the world even knew there were cheetahs in this part of the world. So we were able to at least get the cheetah on the red book, and now the world knows that there are cheetahs there. And with the work that we've done, the last few years, all of the samples from these cheetahs have come down to our genetics lab in Namibia, and last year we put a paper out that allowed and helped the cheetah to be uplisted in this region to an endangered species, which is kind of sad when you have to be excited about uplisting an animal to endangered. We put camera traps out, and with this, now we're developing conservancies. So I mentioned to you about our conservancies in Namibia. We were able to take people from Somaliland, our government officials, to Namibia to learn about our conservancies and the benefits to our communities. And they said, great, then go for it. Well, so we've changed the laws in Namibia. That was part of one of our grants. This is the last year we've been working on demarcating this protected area. This is right where our center is pretty much right in here. And just about a month ago, that's been demarcated as the first protected area and conservancy. There are about 16 villages within it, about 11,000 people. And there is a huge amount of wildlife in this area, and we're going through a big camera trapping program right now. What we're trying to do is show with a poster like this again, which is all in Somali, that conserving wildlife helps all of us. So people like wildlife and they give you money. And with that, we need to learn more about where the wildlife is. And so we've got camera traps up, and we want people to help us monitor them. When we first put our camera traps out, they were grabbed and thrown away and stomped on. And so we said, no, that's where awareness and education comes in. And now we're actually getting the communities to help us through this camera trapping program that we'll be involved in. And we have some of the most amazing wildlife species in the northern part of Africa that most people don't know about. And the communities don't know anything about them, and we're teaching them about their wildlife. We're training wildlife observers. They've got smartphones that they're now connected into a program called SMART. And they're learning that the cheetahs are there. We put them through Future Farmer of Africa training. We put them through educational training programs. And right now the communities are all active with us to help develop these areas for their benefit. As I'm getting ready to close, so I know I've been talking a lot, but I'm just trying to give you this overview. In January this past year, we put together a Global Cheetah Summit. This is the first time that we brought people from around the world together to talk about the problems and the solutions of how to save the cheetah. We had over 80 institutions together, and these are all people that I worked with closely, 15 countries, and 140 people working together on problems and solutions. We put together 10 working groups, and we came out of it with a declaration on how we're going to go about saving the cheetah. Our declaration basically has said that we've got to do a lot more. We need to collaborate together, not only with cheetah people, we need to work together with the antelope people, with the rangeland people, with climate change people, with the governments and communities. And one of the most important things that came out of it is that we will be looking at these 33 populations that are remaining, and we're going to be looking at circling them with community-based programs and then trying to overlap it with growth of the wildlife populations, reduction of the livestock, and look at their livelihood development. It's going to be an interesting task, but we don't have that many years to do this. With less than 7,000 cheetahs left, we have to work very actively. And that's why I brought everyone together for this workshop, and I'm telling everyone in the world that we have a big job to do, and we need a lot of help. We have taken an integrated systems approach, which I hope that you've seen. The systems all need to work, and the cheetah's a part of that system, and it's pretty. So we look at conservation, we look at the education, supported by the solid research that is critical, and then we look at stewardship. The stewardship of the people, we look at the stewardship of the world, and the stewardship of the governments working together. We're here because we want to tell you about our internship programs, and thanks to Christy over here, again, put your hand up. We've been able to have some great interns from the university here. We thank you. And again, too, you guys put your hands up there. We've had 2 others as well, but remember, the internships are open right now, so sign up. We also have a lot of Namibian interns, and we do take PhD students and master's students. So if you want to do something interesting or global, join us. But we also invite you to visit us. So even if you don't want to be an intern and you want to go on a safari, or bring your family or tell your parents, we've got a great eco-tourism center, and we've got little lodges, we've got a day center, and lots of wildlife for people to see and enjoy, and the best ice cream in the world. Our staff is about 150 people in Namibia, our whole staff overall. The work that we do is about 200 people working very, very hard on a daily basis to try to save the cheetah. And we know that together, that there is hope, and we can save the most amazing animal on the face of the earth. So thank you very much for listening. And this great book, Cheetahs, Biology and Conservation, we wrote a couple years ago. It is a great textbook, so if you want to know more about cheetahs, it's online. It's an Elsevier book. And there's a great silent auction out there, and there's some other crafts. We're always also looking for support. Some of the things that you can also do is adopt a cheetah, sponsor a cheetah. You can sponsor a livestock guarding dog, help us put a GPS collar on one of the cheetahs, or help us feed a cheetah for a year. We only have 130 of them. So all of that adds up, and we are a small nonprofit. We are a 501c3, and we are a 4-star charity. And we're proud of the work that we've done, and I'm very, very proud of all of our staff and all of our team. And many of them have come from great young people who have seen a vision and want to help. So thank you for having me.
Do we have any questions for Dr. Marker?
I'm curious, you mentioned a couple times about reintroductions, and I was just curious about kind of that training that you're doing for these cheetahs before they get to the wild. I know you mentioned hunting training, and I just wanted to hear a bit more about what that looks like.
Well, the cheetahs will, they have an instinct to chase after a moving object. So our cheetahs, we keep them all very well exercised. When we feed them, they run behind a truck. So they are in very good physical condition. And mentally, they're in pretty good condition because they're out in the middle of nowhere, but there's a fence around them. It's a big fence, but still, they do see and know everything that's out there. So they see the wildlife go by and they smell it. But then when you put an animal out in the wild, you do have to be able to track it and know where it's going. And from that, usually the first couple weeks is all exploratory. So with that, you also have to feed them. So we do a supplementally feed. So they are used to us. They're not habituated, but they do know the truck that feeds them. So as we put them back out in the wild, the keeper and the food truck is nearby. And so if they haven't caught something, but they usually don't within the first week, we will supplementally feed them. And usually within 2 weeks to 2 months, they're hunting on their own. And then it goes through a trial and error. They also have to go around and find where water is. So we also have to put water down for them until they find water. And that is a lot of the work that goes into putting them back out in the wild. So the post-release is critical, and we keep our staff kind of attached to the animal. Even though they're not attached, that animal knows the sound of the car, and they know who that person is. And as they learn how to hunt, then they go off and they don't need us anymore, which is what we love. But we've done a few papers on that, so you're welcome to look up reintroduction of cheetahs.
So you said that cheetahs get colored, correct? So for the boxes, it looks black, and Africa gets really hot. So how does the GPS not overheat and just lose track of the cheetah?
Blow up?
Yeah.
No, it's not, because the collars are beige, the same color as the cheetah. And and usually in the hot heat of the day, the cheetah's under a tree. The cheetahs are never out. They're very sensitive to hot weather. Most animals are. And that goes along even with the livestock guarding dog program, is that most of the predators are active at night. Cheetahs are active at dawn and dusk. But it is the cooler time of the day. And we've not had that for nearly 25 years that I've been tracking cats. I've never had one blow up. So thanks for asking.
What are the costs associated with volunteering or interning with you guys?
Yeah, I think it's on the web, and I'm not quite sure, and maybe you guys know, but I think it could be, because it's been a grant, I think it's
For
to,
12 weeks, it was about $6,500, but that included airfare. I'm looking at Ben, is that right? Yes. Yeah.
so that's 3 months, yeah, plus airfares.
Yeah, and the scholarship, bid strip scholarship is $5,000, and so it covers the bulk of it. And we are often able to partner with home departments or other agencies on campus to cover the full cost of a summer internship with CCF.
What was it, the bid strip, what's it called?
The bid strip Cheetah Conservation Internship. Is that right? I think that's right.
Student support.
Student support funds, yeah. Any students who are interested, I've just put a sign-up sheet at the back. If you just put your name and email, Education Abroad Teams suite of international opportunities.
I have a question, sorry, go ahead. I'm just curious, Mara, more on the relationship with the farmers and them using the GPS now, like, just to know a little bit more, how much are they using it? Is it extensive, or like, what does that look like?
Are they using the,
Like the tracking you said that the farmers are using?
well, no, because every animal that we put out over the last couple years now, we've geo-referenced. And so it started slow, and we have a whole nother team in the east of the country. And so we started slowly along that line. I think we've got like somewhere around 85 plus farms that are geo-referenced now for this early warning system. And they've become quite engaged, and then we've just moved it up in our area, which you know our area, and I'll tell you a little joke. I'm sorry, I'm not good at my jokes, but we had a farmers meeting about 2 months ago and brought them all in, maybe it was 3 months ago, and said, we've got these cats, they're collared, we want you to be monitoring them with us, and you're our closest friends, and we know that you don't have problems, but we need you to help us with the other farmers. And of course, Harry was there, our neighbor, our good neighbors, and they're all going, oh, we don't have problems with cheetahs. It's like, well, we know it because they're all really good farmers, which you've met a lot of them. And I missed my chance because they all were saying, we don't have problems, we don't have problems. And I should have said at that point, oh, well, great, then it'll be wonderful when the elephants show up. So, because we do want elephants soon, and elephants are also considered to be problem animals. But I also look at that as another opportunity to put more people to work. You break a fence, have a fence crew. You make money by having people look at your elephants. Oh my gosh, I think it makes sense. You're my economic friend here. So, Joe. But we're lucky. But I basically 3 months ago said to my neighbors, I don't want any more cheetahs to be killed by your hands. And I mean, they know me so well. And you met some of our neighbors and the farmers that are there, and they kind of went, oh, maybe we should listen to her. And look at how much we're making here in Namibia by having more tourists come in. Most of our neighbors have ecotourism farms, and they're making money off of that. And now they're saying, oh, well, maybe we can take our neighbors out to, our visitors out to track cheetahs. Well, how cool is that? To see a cheetah in the wild? Woof. So it's an evolution. It takes time.
How do you compare conservation or cheetah-specific conservation policies across the country to operate from? Are they enabling and sufficient for your work?
I didn't hear it.
How do you compare cheetah conservation policies in the different countries where you work?
Great.
And are they sufficient?
Are the policies sufficient? So I guess if anyone's still listening over there, we've tried to work with all the different governments through a range-wide cheetah program. And it is also under IUCN. And we just a few months ago, earlier this year, we had an African IUCN regional meeting under CMS, the Convention of Migratory Species, and talked about many of these issues. And many of our range-wide reports are outdated, and we're trying to update them more. But then one of the things that came out of our workshop in January is that we need more leadership on a global scale on making ambassadors for cheetahs. I think every meeting you go to, and you're from maybe Africa, you will listen to everybody talk about elephants, rhinos, some lions, but those are the animals that are taking over all of the conversations. Nobody is talking about a cheetah or an African wild dog or a leopard. And so what we're trying to say is that we need much more awareness and policies in place. We know that we have the tools to not have people to have to kill cheetahs. We need to implement those tools, and that's one of the things that this workshop laid out, is that we've now strategized around trying to go to a higher scale with many of the programs that I've taken you through that many other countries are now implementing. But we need to go to a higher scale or scale up. Which country are you from?
Zambia, just next door.
Okay. Yep.
That prompts me to ask if you could tell this group some of the range of different disciplines that would be appropriate for internships at CCF, because it's a pretty big range. You're raising a policy question.
Yes.
Yeah, but what are some of
And the policies are really important. So international development is really interesting. Community-based programs. Of course, we look at the basic biology, so genetics, veterinary medicine, pre-vet, animal science, food science, business, forestry. What else? What? Communication, which is critical. Communication, and one of the groups that we're working with in Somaliland right now was a group called Wild Aid, and they were the ones that actually put a lot of awareness into China and North Vietnam about the rhino, shark fin, and elephants. And that actually stopped the use of those animals for medicinal purposes by over 80%. But it was directed campaigns, and though that directed campaign was done really by influencers in their Asian country. I think Jackie Chan was a pretty well-known guy. Yeah, well, so do all the people. And Jackie Chan, he came forward and he became one of the big influencers. And they used that on media, on billboards, on TV, on radio, and it has worked. So we're trying something similar, but we need a Jackie Chan in Saudi Arabia and the UAE, because that's where the cheetahs are being smuggled to illegally. And we need those cultures to not want the cheetah as a pet. And Saudi Arabia has been working very closely with us because they want to put cheetahs back out in the wild. And they've realized what rewilding looks like, and they want the cheetahs back. And so they're helping support our work. But the UAE at this point has not been as active to try to help stop it, because their rulers still have and love these cheetahs and other animals as exotic pets. And I think that's fine as long as they could be captive bred and not come from the wild. And then we can teach them how to captive breed them. So there's a lot of things that we're dealing with on the demand side as well. And that'll be more next year, the year after. And hopefully my opinion is why the work that we've done right now in the Horn of Africa, I'm really hoping that in the next couple years to have curbed this trade. But we're now going from Somaliland down into Ethiopia. And that's a whole nother challenge with another government and other policies and politics.
So if you wonder if one person can make a difference, I think the moral of this story is absolutely, and that person can be you. So add your name to our sign-up list in the back. Think about doing an internship.
Thank you.
At any of these, and think about supporting CCF. Thank you again to Dr. Marker and her team for visiting Wyoming, and we're looking forward to lots more collaboration.
Great. And we could also have a cheetah chapter here in Laramie, Wyoming. And I think Christy would help that, as would Dion.
And the global engagement.
And the global engagement. And all of you can become part of it. And you can help me. Okay?
So
Thank you.
join us for a reception outside, silent auction. Be generous. These are amazing things that have made their way all the way here to Laramie. So you can't find them in a day. Thanks again, Dr. Marker.
Thank you.